Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I am going to be doing another video in my preparing for IVF series because we are about to start IVF any day now. It starts with birth control for about 2 weeks, so I'll get into that whenever we're actually currently started and let you guys know what the plan is. But today I wanted to go over our IVF class that we had yesterday and then kind of ask for some advice from you guys because I do have two concerns that I am kind of at a standstill on and I would love to hear some advice. So if you're new to my channel, my name's Anna and my husband and I are starting IVF, like I said, very soon after 2 years of unsuccessfully trying to conceive our second child together. So if you're interested in videos like this or you're just curious to follow us along on our journey, then hit the subscribe button and let's go ahead and get into the video. I do want to say that we actually personally know the nurse that's our IVF nurse. Our clinic only takes about 6 couples per IVF cycle, I guess, and each nurse is kind of assigned to each cycle, I'm assuming is how I understood it at least. And we actually know this nurse personally because she is our daughter's basketball coach. So I actually thought that would make me a little bit uncomfortable, but honestly at this point I'm like, no, I'm kind of glad that at least we kind of know that you're a good person and that you are able to help us through this very important time in our lives. So at the start of the class, they gave each couple a folder, and in the folder I will show you guys, it's kind of a mess right now, but I will kind of show you guys what is in here to let you get an idea. The first thing that's going to be in your folder is kind of a packet for consent forms. So they look like this, and you can see how thick it is right there. Basically what this covers, you're just getting permission to do IVF, or you're signing your consent to do IVF. And there's also some consent forms for genetic testing, and you have to allow them to biopsy these embryos. We're not doing the PGS testing if you guys are wondering. And there's also some information in the back that I want to talk to you guys about, and it's kind of a really big concern of mine, and that is what to do with your leftover embryos. So the other side of the packet, there is a checklist for kind of a pre-cycle or pre-IVF checklist to make sure you kind of have done everything that you need to do. On here, there's a checkoff for a financial appointment. For the female patient, there's blood work, a follicle count, which is actually your baseline that you kind of start when you do IVF, and then a sonohysterogram with a trial transfer. And this is pretty much kind of like an HSG where they shoot dye up your tubes. But for the sonohysterogram, they're just putting in saline and they look at your uterus to kind of see where's the best spot to put your little embryo, or M-baby as I guess the IVF world calls them. And then for the male partners, it's saying that you have to do a semen analysis, which we have done several of those. And there's also an optional mark here to leave a frozen sample. Now you guys know how I feel about leaving a frozen sample after they previously lost one of ours. We are planning on doing it again, and I will be calling and checking on it very frequently, just because when you do your actual egg retrieval and they fertilize the eggs, your husband does leave a fresh sample, but if for some reason that sample is not up to par, at least they have a frozen to fall back on. And then both partners have to do your IVF labs. I'm not sure how that works if you're doing a sperm donor or an egg donor, but I know that since it's my husband and I, we're doing the IVF together with my eggs, his sperm, we have to do kind of a pre-IVF blood work. And then there's also a few forms on this side, pretty much just how to use the medication. I will show you guys the medication list for IVF. It is quite the list. It is insane. And yeah, it's very overwhelming, but there's also some guidelines in here for some tips on your egg retrieval day and your transfer day. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is just they give you a sample calendar like this, and I actually use this calendar to write notes on the back for some things that she went over in the class. Just some vitamins they mentioned that you should be taking, and kind of what your limits are for working out, and it went over just kind of how the IVF process is going to work. And the entire class was a slideshow. They went through the beginning stages of IVF, starting at your blood work and sonohysterogram, up until transfer day. So a lot of information. And if you guys are curious like what the actual steps of IVF are, like what do you do from the beginning, what is each and every step, I can do a video like that for you guys, probably closer to while I'm going through it. I can go off my calendar, but I won't get my personalized calendar until I'm on cycle day 1 of my period and I start the birth control, and they will have a plan laid out for me. So I will get that calendar here in the next few days, I think, because I know my cycle is due to start literally any moment of today or tomorrow, and yeah, we'll be officially starting, and I'm just insanely excited, nervous, anxious. I want to be as stress-free as possible. But on a kind of change of note here, I want to get your guys' advice on 2 things. And the first thing being work. So obviously with IVF, you have a lot of appointments you have to go to. I know that there's a 3-week period that you have to be missing work. So pretty much throughout your simulation week, you're doing it for 7 to 10 days. In that 7 to 10 day period, you're going in for 3, 4, sometimes 5 appointments every other day and getting blood work, ultrasound. Even though it's a very quick appointment, I can't always get in at 7:30 in the morning. It's going to be an issue with work, you know, so I have to do intermittent leave paperwork just so I'm covered for all of my appointments. And then there are 2 full days I will have to be absent from work, one being the egg retrieval and one being transfer day. So in hindsight, I know it's not like a big deal to some people, but you just want to make sure that your bases are covered and nothing happens to your job or anything like that. It's just smart to do it, and most people that I know get the paperwork done, so that way it's no big deal. Your fertility specialist will fill it out. You'll just file it with your HR department, and then you're good to go. But what I'm really struggling with is not that paperwork, because that's no big deal. It's kind of whether or not I should tell my actual boss what I'm going on this kind of intermittent medical leave for. I know it's no one's business. If I don't want them to know, I shouldn't tell them. But I am really just concerned maybe I should tell her, because I guess I just don't know if I should or not, because I feel like maybe if I told her, she'd be a little bit more understanding, and I don't know, and maybe if I didn't tell her, she might feel like I'm not kind of trusting her with that information. And I don't know if they're even allowed to ask you like why you're on medical leave when they get the paperwork. I'm 100% not even sure, but I'm curious to know if any of you guys who are going through fertility treatments, if you told your boss exactly what you were doing, or if you just kind of said it's a medical thing and, you know, that's it. So that's my one concern. It's not as big as my next concern, but I'm curious to know about what you guys have done. And the next biggest concern that I think a lot of people have when they do IVF is kind of what to do with your leftover embryos. Man, this is kind of something that I'm really struggling with, and my husband and I just kind of are struggling with this. Obviously, we won't know how many embryos we're going to have left over, because we won't know how many eggs we have until they go in and retrieve the eggs, and then you'll get a call over the next few days telling you how many fertilized. And we are planning on transferring 2 embryos, and say we have 5 fertilized that grew to day 5, so we're going to transfer 2 and put 3 of them in freeze if our first pregnancy is successful. And what if we don't want any more kids after that? I mean, I know we said we want 2 more children, so if we end up with twins, or say we end up having a singleton baby twice with 2 different embryos and we still have left over, what are we supposed to do with those embryos? There pretty much is 4 options. I've heard of a 5th, and I'll tell you guys about that. The first option being that you can have your embryos destroyed. The second option being that you can have your embryos donated to science. Third would be donating them to someone else. You would just put them, I guess, in some kind of a bank, and then when someone needed them, they'd be paying for those eggs as donor eggs or donor embryos. And kind of the 4th option is just to keep them frozen in case someone you know or someone in your family needs them, which would be kind of odd for me to give it to someone in my family, because I'd be seeing the child that I knew would genetically be ours. So those are kind of the 4 options that they go over in class. But I also read online there's a 5th option, which I don't know how I feel about this option either, to be honest, but it's called a compassionate transfer option, where pretty much the physician will transfer all of your embryos into you at a time that they will not implant, just at a time that's not viable for them. So they just won't implant. But you're not destroying them, you're putting them in, but you know they're not going to make it. So I guess I don't really see the difference in destroying them versus putting them in knowing they're not going to make it. If you guys have more experience with that or know more about it, can you let me know in the comments about that? The reason why I'm struggling is because morally I just cannot destroy embryos because they are fertilized, and that is like, will be a baby if implanted into someone most likely. So destroying them is not really an option for me. Compassionate transfer, from what I know about it, is not an option for us either, because I feel like it's kind of the same thing, because you're not really giving those embryos a fighting chance. Donating them to science, I don't know how I feel about that either, but even if I wanted to do that, I really cannot, because they are not accepting any right now. They are completely full. Yeah. So we're kind of left with the option of either keeping them frozen or donating them to the kind of the bank, the donor embryo. I'm assuming it's like a sperm bank for donor eggs, embryos. You can tell that I am very researched on this subject. But I'm just kind of, I don't know what to do. I feel like right now I'm thinking maybe we should just keep them after we've had our 2 or our 2 singletons, keep them frozen for a few years. But there's still going to be a point where we're like, okay, we're paying almost $800 a year to store these embryos. What are we going to do with them? And I honestly think that I'm leaning more towards donating them. But I'm wondering how I feel about donating them, because there's always going to be that wonder in my mind of, is there someone else with our fertilized embryo growing a baby that genetically matches us? You know, like, I want to say that if I was in a situation where I needed donor embryos, I would hope that there would be some there for me if for some reason we couldn't do IVF without them. So I'm trying to look at it in that aspect, but it still just kind of bothers me a little bit. So I just don't know what to do. And there's all these consent forms. We have to consent to it. And it's just crazy because these are like your children. The way they word it in this paperwork is like that. And it's just so serious. And you have to get this packet notarized, so it's like serious. And we're just kind of having a hard time with it, and we're obviously not going to make a decision like right today, but it's something that we have to really think about and not just keep putting off, because we need to kind of become at peace with whatever decision that we make. So I would love to hear your guys' advice and opinions on this. Please don't try to convince me to destroy them. That's not going to happen. You're going to be wasting your time, and I know that not everyone's going to agree with me, but morally I just cannot destroy them. So please don't try to give me a lesson about why I should destroy them. I just can't. Like, I just could never ever do something like that. And I know that, and if you've done that, like, I'm not judging you. Every person is different. I'm not saying that because I can't do it. If you do it, I think you're a bad person. I'm not that kind of person at all, you guys. Like, I don't judge you for your decisions. I don't. I'm not that kind of person. So I would love to hear from you guys who have done it or have a decision in your mind about what your plan is to do. Let me know in the comments down below. And remember that if you don't want to comment down below, you can do a DM to me on Snapchat or on Instagram. I am on Instagram quite a bit. And I also leave my email down below for those of you who don't do social media. But that is all for this video. And if you guys want to follow along, hit subscribe. And I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.